fumble. Chris Spielman recovers. Christie's 34-yard field goal seals the victory. Bills win it 23-20, in case you missed it. Well, Jimmy Johnson is true to his word. Johnson said he would establish a ground.
Larry and Chris, Soldier Field in Chicago. For the first time since '88, the Cowboys are in town for a regular season game. We'll get you ready now on Prime Monday. It may be a new season, but some things refuse to change. We've seen primetime do double time before. Now it's for a longer haul. His preseason was real short, but Emmett says he's ready to ride. Tonight, we'll go backstage with the man taking care of business on and off the field.
It's always been important for me to establish a personality off the football field.
Dave was the master of D and Big D. Now he's facing the Cowboys, just like another old Bear coach. That Ditka demeanor now belongs to the new intense linebacker in the middle of the midway. Quarterbacks are once again in the middle of the injury news.
Need a little time on this now. Spread right spear, option right sluggo on one, right?
When will the moon come out again? It may be a holiday, but there's no day off for Prime Monday next. Hi, folks. Happy Labor Day. No holiday for our happy family. We had a cookout a short time ago in the backyard. Sterling Sharp.
Chef.
We did. You cooked.
Yeah, you missed.
We did.
Joe,
You didn't get the invitation.
Joe brought all the treats. Oops. But we couldn't include our friends Ron Jaworski, who's at NFL Films, and Chris Mortensen, who is in Atlanta. But, guys, thanks for showing up anyway, and they'll join us throughout the show. Well, it's the final act of the league's kickoff 96 weekend. For the 5th time this decade, that kickoff act puts the Super Bowl champ on the Monday night season opener. After an offseason in the off-field spotlight, tonight in Chicago against the Bears, the Dallas Cowboys begin their quest to become the first team ever to win 4 Super Bowls in 5 years. Leslie Visser is at Soldier Field in Chicago. Leslie.
Hi, Mike. Well, it's a beautiful day in the Windy City. They've been tailgating here since noon. That tells you how excited they are here. You know, everyone's been saying that the Cowboy offense is in chaos. But, hey, here tonight, Emmitt Smith is confident, Troy Aikman is healthy, and Deion Sanders says he already understands the role of a receiver. One of the questions about you is, are you afraid to go over the middle, or is that just talk?
What receiver you know like to go over the middle? When you find him, you call me.
Deion has worked out primarily at receiver all during the preseason, but he says he can manage his time both on offense and on defense without getting tired. But Coach Barry Switzer, thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask you, do you think that you might be indulging Barry Sanders' ego on offense and you might pay for it on defense?
Barry Sanders. What's
I'm sorry.
Gosh. About this game?
Yes, on Deion Sanders.
Thank goodness he doesn't.
Yeah, right.
Deion is a guy that thinks he can play every snap of the ball game. He has his body in great shape, Leslie. He will play both sides of the ball, and he will manage his snaps. He knows when he needs to come out of the football game, and it depends on what they do defensively, offensively, how much he plays on defense. And they run the ball a lot. He might play the whole ball game tonight.
What about Troy Aikman said that without Jay Novacek, without Michael Irvin, that maybe you won't be able to sustain the long drives. Might we see something different on offense?
Well, we haven't accomplished that all preseason. I don't know if we've made a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 3. You know, losing Michael and Jay Novacek, they are probably 80% of our 3rd down possession passing game, and we haven't had any consistency in preseason. We never had those 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 plays and out. Troy go do it again out, and a night's over for him. We never accomplished that. So obviously Troy's concerned. We're all concerned, and we have something to prove, and that's why I said this is a big question mark tonight. We're not as talented, and we're not as deep as we were a year ago.
Is Emmitt Smith at full speed, and do you need him at full speed?
Well, we always need your players at full speed, Leslie. He's not at full speed. He's not where he wants to be, and Mark Tuine's not either. So we've got some problems, but they're pros. They go out and play hard and give us effort, and hopefully that'll make up for lack of their physical abilities.
Well, you're pretty good on Monday nights. Thanks for joining us, Barry. And Charles Haley says he is healthy, which is not good news for tackle Andy Heck or quarterback Eric Kramer. Mike?
All right, Leslie, we'll be back to you throughout our 90 minutes. You know, Lou Holtz, with Notre Dame, always badmouths his team. Oh, we're not ready, we're not this. But from Barry, you get the sense that it's a legit concern. We've all been to Dallas within the last month. The cloud hanging over this team is real. Can you expect them to walk on the field and look like a championship team tonight?
No, Mike, I can't. I don't think this football team can go out there on that football field and say, we're the world champions, you have to come and beat us. I think this football team has a lot to prove to itself. Can they convert third downs, as Barry alluded to? He's not sure. Troy's not sure. What's going to happen? And where is Deion going to play? Where is he going to play a part in this football game? They had a lousy preseason, Sterling. You know, they didn't play well at all. I think conditioning is a problem. It's a good thing it's a night game, because if they were playing like in Miami, half those guys be on the ground.
You're exactly right, and that's one thing. Soldier Field, the weather's going to be really nice. I think they may be fine, but also the Chicago Bears have their problems on defense, bringing in a new guy in Brian Cox, who they expect to be their savior. He's going to help shore up the run defense. They're going to move him around in obvious passing situations, and he's going to be the guy that's going to carry the load for that entire defense and try to take some pressure off that smallish up front pass rush type people that they have. And Jaws, I tell you, not only that, they're going to try to move him around in the run game so he can get in, fill some holes, shut Emmitt Smith down in the backfield.
You know, Sterling, I agree. The guy that has to wear the hat for the Chicago Bears is Brian Cox, and they will use him wisely. He has a lot of options in his package. And as I look at the Dallas Cowboys, the guy that has to wear the hat for them is quarterback Troy Aikman. For the first time in a long time, he is without his two go-to guys, his security blankets. Of course, that's Novacek and Michael Irvin. And when you look back to last season, Troy Aikman threw 20 touchdown passes. 18 of those passes went to Irvin and Novacek. He's got to find a way to fill a void in that offense. Mort?
Well, Jaws, you mentioned the security blankets. One of them, Michael Irvin, is, of course, serving his NFL suspension, but he's also doing community service from his no-contest plea to the cocaine felony charges. He's actually working in a hospital, moving filing cabinets, mopping floors. Not exactly what the Cowboys wish he was doing tonight. Now, you take a look at Deion Sanders. One interesting note there. Back in spring when Deion was contemplating to pass up the baseball season, he met with Jerry Jones. And he had a little arrangement he made with Jerry Jones. I talked to a coach about this. It's really out of the coaching staff's hands as to how much Deion plays on offense or defense. It is in Deion Sanders' hands because that's the arrangement he had with Jerry Jones. Now you know why Jimmy Johnson isn't coaching in Dallas anymore, Mike.
Another point along those lines, Mort, the day Irvin came to camp for the first time, we were there. Jerry Jones told me he's going to play in the preseason games, and Barry Switzer and the coaching staff won that one. Irvin didn't play, but Jerry gets the final word in terms of Deion. Well, as Dallas gets ready to start a Super Bowl run tonight, the team they beat in last year's big game is already seeing last season kind of repeat itself. Consider that for the second straight year after the opening game, Pittsburgh has lost a leader on defense for the season, and the Steelers are facing a quarterback question. Bonnie Bernstein has today's Steel City story.
Mike, when the Steelers gave Jim Miller a 3-year, $6.5 million contract extension, they knew he was young, they knew he was inexperienced, and they knew he'd need some time to get acclimated to being Pittsburgh's top quarterback. So when Bill Cowher named Mike Tomczak the Game 2 starter on Monday, caught a couple people off guard.
I thought they would go with, Jim, let him settle down and get the job done. So, it is somewhat of a surprise, but we need something to get the offense going.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't upset right now because I want to play, but in the same respect, I'm a team player, and whatever it takes to help this team win, I'm going to do my part.
So Tomczak will start, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll play the entire game, and it's that merry-go-round at quarterback that's made the Steelers' offensive chemistry hard to come by.
When you don't have the consistency at the quarterback position, I think it creates a rough situation for the offense because now we don't have a solid leader going out there, leading us in the direction.
The Steelers raised some eyebrows when they decided to keep 10 linebackers on the roster. Then again, who knew they'd lose 3 of them in Game 1?
I guess that's why the coaches get paid the big bucks.
You look on the roster, you say 10 linebackers, you think that's kind of absurd, but I tell you, in our situation right now, it's probably one of the smartest moves we've made in quite some time.
The Steelers have confirmed All-Pro Greg Lloyd is out for the season. On top of that, the 2 guys tapped to replace Kevin Green, Jason Gilden and Steve Conley, will be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks with knee sprains. So what you have for Game 2 against the Ravens, it'll likely be Eric Ravati replacing Lloyd, and inside linebacker Chad Brown will take the other outside spot. That's a position he played his final 2 years at Colorado. In Pittsburgh, Bonnie Bernstein, ESPN.
And Bonnie, the Steelers obviously going to have to find some linebacking help. They may look at Keith Goganis, who was cut recently by Jacksonville. He played at Penn State. Maybe he'll return to the state of Pennsylvania as a Steeler. But, Joe, let me go back to that quarterback situation. Do you think it's a mistake making a switch just after one performance?
You know, I'm not one to sit here and second-guess Bill Cowher, but I will. Only because I just don't understand this. You spend 5 weeks of training camp to make a determination that Jim Miller is good enough to lead your football team. And after 3 quarters, you decide he's not good enough to start the next week. Here's the scenario that I think you're in. You don't believe in Jim Miller. You've already made that statement by naming Mike Tomczak. If Mike Tomczak gets in trouble, where do you go? You've already conceded that Cordell Stewart's not ready to play. He's better served this Slash. So, Jaws, to me, you and I have talked about this before. I think this is a classic case. When you've got guys that are supposedly good enough to be number ones, all you've got is a bunch of number twos with no clear-cut one.
I agree with you on that, Joe. And as I look at the Steelers situation, I believe Bill Cowher thought he could win by playing great defense and running the football and hiding his quarterback. And the one thing that we have learned through the years, you cannot hide your quarterback in the National Football League. You have to allow him to go out and make plays. And I'll give you another situation or another scenario. I was down in Washington, D.C. yesterday where there's been a quarterback controversy. Norv Turner decided to go with Gus Frerotte. He put him out there on the field and took the ball out of his hands. Did not allow him to play the quarterback position. You have to give the guys the opportunity to throw the football up the field. Another thing I noticed about Gus Frerotte in Washington, for the last couple of years, he's been kind of loosey-goosey, having a good time. I talked to him before the game. He was real uptight. This is not the way you got to play the position. And my advice to Gus and to Jim Miller would be, hey, guys, pull the cork, go out there and have some fun. Mike?
Well, you know, Ron, for Frerotte, the RFK crowd is going to be real antsy. The Bears come to Washington on Sunday. We have other NFL news regarding quarterbacks. 39-year-old Viking quarterback Warren Moon has a sprained ankle, sprained foot, and turf toe. On Thursday, we should find out if he can play on Sunday. The Raiders, as you know, didn't have Jeff Hostetler in the loss yesterday at Baltimore. No official word just yet from Oakland. Mike White, the coach, is supposed to have a press conference sometime during the show. So if we get the information, we'll pass it along. New England receiver Sean Jefferson out of a Miami hospital, where last night he was under observation after suffering a concussion in the third quarter of the Patriots' loss to the Dolphins. And Buffalo will be without wide receiver Steve Tasker. Injured his foot on his first catch of the year. He should be out a couple of weeks. We have tons, and I mean tons, ahead on this show. Leslie goes backstage with Emmett. Chris Berman joins us from the Monday Night Football studio in New York. Lynn Swans at Soldier Field will also listen in to the oldest QB in the league, dealing with the toughest of elements.
I can hold on to that damn ball. I mean, man, these guys wouldn't stop us. They would not stop us.
Also, two ends of the South Florida story yesterday. The mistakes for the Pats and Drew Bledsoe, and Jimmy changes 40% of the team and seems to change the whole attitude of the Dolphins. Don't go away. Much more to talk about when Prime Monday comes back.
All right, Dan, let's see that famous fast release. We'll see it again? All right, John. Okay, here we go. You can do a little better than that. Let's see. What's he doing? He's scrambling. Duck! Get real.
Logo Athletic, authentic team apparel. Critics are calling Bulletproof the freshest, funniest action buddy movie since 48 Hours.
Prove that.
Wayans and Sandler make a great action comedy team.
Show.
Loads of laughs.
My friend said you wanted to make out with me.
Bulletproof packs a 1-2 punch.
I gotta learn how to fight.
Damon Wayans, Adam Sandler. Bulletproof.
You'll always be my bodyguard.
Rated R. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
When I started racing, I couldn't be choosy about a sponsor. Now, 25 years later, I only work with the people I believe in. Like the pros at Auto Value Parts Stores. You can get what you need for your car from over 150,000 quality parts. And with over 1,700 convenient locations, you always find real value. Besides, their logo looks pretty good on a race car.
Auto Value Parts Stores. The parts you want, the value you expect.
NFL Prime Monday is brought to you by Auto Value Parts Stores. The parts you want, the value you expect. And by Prudential. Live well. Make a plan. Be your own rock.
Republican vice presidential candidate Jack Kemp was in San Francisco yesterday. President Clinton, on a campaign stop in Wisconsin, checked out Lambeau Field and caught a pass as he walked through the tunnel with Reggie White and Brett Favre today in Green Bay. Week 1, it's all about first impressions. The new stadium in Carolina is beautiful. The new team in Baltimore, well received, and they won. Their uniforms is, well, that's another story. What about the first impressions of some highly touted young players? Let's start with Ki-Jana Carter, 95's first-round pick, coming off the preseason knee injury from 95. Well, he was hampered more by a young offensive line yesterday than the knee injury. 14 carries, 14 yards. His longest carry against the Rams was 9 yards. Ki-Jana lost yardage on 6 of his 14 carries. Rams defense got it done yesterday. Carter's in good company with his bad debut. Since 1970, only Walter Payton has carried at least 8 times in his first game and gained fewer yards than Carter. Payton did bounce back to have a pretty decent career. Jamie Morris, by the way, he's also in the NFL record book, most attempts ever in an NFL game rushing with 45. Now, while his yards per carry were a paltry 2.2 in the same game, and he fumbled on his first carry as an NFL player, Lawrence Phillips did get into the end zone twice, doing a decent job for the St. Louis Rams. The top performances among rookie backs, not limited to the top picks. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the 3rd rounder from Miami, had the best day. 2nd rounder Leland McElroy, a solid debut for the Cardinals. Jabbar, though, clearly looking right at home in his debut.
I just want to, make it, in December, be playing my best football, knowing all the blocks that my linemen are going to make, no longer running no instincts, running on, knowing everything, just being, I want to be, almost a veteran by the time December comes. That's how I would like to, perform.
Joe, add Jabbar to Stanley Pritchett, the kid out of South Carolina. The rookie backfield of the Dolphins, just part of an entire new attitude, seemed to be jumping off the screen at me yesterday.
I'm so excited to watch what the Miami Dolphins have done. But if anybody keeps an eye on Jimmy Johnson, you know very well that this is sort of his blueprint. Remember back in Dallas when they were really terrible, 1-15? He went with all kinds of new guys, made a lot of deals, built his own football team with their own attitude. Now, he's doing the same thing here in Miami. But what I was really impressed with was Dan Marino's ability to convert when he had to. This is not something that Dan's been asked to do in previous years. He's been able to throw the ball around basically at will when he wanted to. Jimmy Johnson has established the fact that there's a new attitude. There is Jimmy Johnson magic down there, Mort. It's an exciting place to be playing football. And if you're a Dolphin fan, it's got to be an exciting season ahead.
Joe, I think one of the misperceptions about Jimmy Johnson is that he's a tyrant. Jimmy Johnson is a great people person. He's a positive person, and he is not unbending. Great example, Saturday night, Gene Atkins, the safety with the Dolphins, was late to the evening meal when Jimmy had told everybody be on time. Well, Gene told Jimmy that he misunderstood it, and Jimmy said, look, if you make plays on Sunday, maybe I'll take away the fine. And sure enough, after the game, you see Jimmy talking to Gene Atkins. He's telling him the fine is off. You played a great game. I'm not going to fine you. Larry Bechtel, the assistant head coach and offensive line coach of the Dolphins, told me he's never been around a better people person than Jimmy Johnson, Jaws.
And Mort, you mentioned, Jimmy Johnson's ability. He also has great ability to hire good people. And you mentioned Larry Bechtel, and certainly a great hire and a key hire. He's the guy that he wanted to bring in to change the look of that offensive line. This was an offensive line that was used to pass setting for 40 or 50 throws from Marino. He wanted some guys to go in there and hit somebody, some smash mouth. They went to a zone blocking technique where they come off the line to a certain area. If anyone's in that area, crush them, smash mouth, knock them out. My only problem now is, will Dan Marino buy into this style of play? I was Dan's backup for a couple of years, and we would sit in the play meetings, and we talk about, well, what are we going to do? And John Sandusky would be up there at the board, and he'd be drawing all the running plays, and Dan would say, ho, 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 John. Hey, I'll go to those running plays after I get my 40 throws. It'll be very interesting to see if Dan buys into this philosophy. But if they win, I'll guarantee you Dan will buy in. Mike?
Well, Ron, Dan has a new backup. As Moore told us on Saturday on SportsCenter, it's official now. Craig Erickson's the 3rd-string quarterback, $500,000 a year. Sterling, we've been talking all our 6 preseason shows about the rookie wide receivers. How are they going to do? Give me a little overall assessment of them in week 1 of the regular season.
Well, I think what you got to do, Mike, is you got to look at the guys, and we're going to talk about two and show some video of two of Eddie Kennison and Marvin Harrison. And we're going to talk about these two guys right here because in the situation that Marvin Harrison's in, being the first pick for Lindy and Fonny like I was in '88, he's getting an opportunity to make plays, making the best of them. Eddie Kennison right here, understanding the offense because he had the ability to go into training camp, get some good work done. The one thing you have to look at is if you look at some of the other guys who didn't get a chance to get into camp early enough to understand, get to know their quarterback, get to know their coaches, they didn't have very good days. Keyshawn Johnson, 1 catch for 50 yards. I'm not saying pass up the money or hold out for the most you can get, but people tell me, if you're as good as you say you are, Mike, you're going to get your money one way or the other.
Well, the fans get very bored with the preseason games. There's a lot of significance to what happens on the field. We're not talking just wide receivers, we're talking quarterbacks as well. Let's stay with the young players, though. Drew Bledsoe, frustrating just to watch him. 19 of 38, 2 interceptions against Miami. Didn't look sharp yesterday.
You know what frustrates me more than anything watching any quarterback, Mike, whether they're young or they're veterans? What really gets my goat is when they make bad decisions mentally. Now, Drew Bledsoe, they brought in Chris Palmer to work with his mechanics, and his mechanics are better. He's carrying the ball a little bit higher. He's doing some good things. But the decisions, there he is. He stares down a receiver. Oliver jumps in and picks it off. They wind up with a touchdown. Here again, he hesitates. Now he hangs one up down the sidelines, looking all the way where he wants to go. The biggest thing that Drew Bledsoe has to work on is what he does with the 6 inches between his ears, Jaws, not necessarily with that long arm of the delivery that he's going to have. I think he's really got to prove to Bill Parcells that he can be the quarterback. Right now, the jury is completely out.
I agree with you, Joe, and what I see is a lack of patience. The throwing into coverage, the eyeballing the receiver, the lack of mechanics. To me, it's all a matter of patience. In the NFL, you have to be able to read coverages, and maybe this point will crystallize Drew Bledsoe to this point. In his 3-year career, he has thrown 53 touchdown passes, but he's thrown 58 interceptions. You cannot make a living in the NFL throwing into coverage. Mike?
It gets tougher, too. At Buffalo on Sunday for Bledsoe and the Pats. Hey, you know who looked comfortable yesterday, Ron? Mark Brunell, Jacksonville, 20 of 31, a couple of touchdowns. He has a better offensive line in front of him, and maybe that's part of what made him look so comfortable yesterday.
Well, certainly Mark Brunell is a guy that I've been critical of in the past. I thought he was one of those gifted athletes that tried to make too much out of his athleticism. But what I saw yesterday in Mark Brunell was a quarterback that would drop, stay in the pocket, boom, make the pump fake, set again, real nice poise, and lay the ball there. Not a lot of guys can make this soft throw. There he made the soft throw. And Brunell's the kind of guy that can also take advantage of running opportunities. And I think that's critical. You set in the pocket, you throw, after you make your read, go to the right guy. But if the running opportunity opens up, then take advantage of it. Mike?
Well, Jaws, I tell you, I'll take over for Mike right here, Jaws. Don't worry about it. I'll square it away. But in spending some time with Kevin Gilbride during training camp and talking about Mark Brunell, he said the one thing that they were enjoyed and happy about is the fact that they're going to control his running ability with nakeds and bootlegs and try to get him outside when they wanted him to. The one thing they were really happy with is Brunell's off-season preparation and watching film of not only the offense but of himself and realizing, Mike, that the most important thing is make the guys around you better.
You know, Gilbride works a little harder this week because Houston comes to Jacksonville on Sunday. That'll be a good game. Lynn Swann, Chris Berman, Emmett Smith, Dave Wanstead still on our Prime Monday rundown. And Jimmy Johnson. Does his return to football return a one-of-a-kind coach to the league? We'll explain what we mean as Prime Monday continues. Don't touch the remote.
Our government has commissioned American Special Forces to intercept and board Flight 343 to disarm a bomb. Now, with no communication and time running out, Washington doesn't know if they've succeeded.
The Pentagon is gonna shoot us down.
Intercept the 747. Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal. Executive Decision.
You can get Executive Decision and Orland Video, available now at all locations.
It's the home of our dreams. I wish we could find a way.
I wish I could find the right retirement plan.
Hi, how can we help you?
At Evergreen Bank, we're committed to help you build your dreams.
Saturday, ESPN 2 kicks off with doubleheader action when North Carolina faces an early season test as they try to contain sophomore sensation Donovan McNabb. Then Coy Detmer begins Colorado's quest for the national title when they invade Fort Collins to battle intrastate rival Colorado State. North Carolina, Syracuse at 6, Colorado State at 9. Saturday only on ESPN 2.
We mentioned it's one of the premier spots on the NFL schedule to open on Monday night. Dallas doing it for the 11th time as they do it tonight. And their record in Monday night openers are pretty impressive, 8-2. Once again this season on Prime Monday, we are joined by our esteemed colleagues to shed some opinion on the NFL news and issues of the day. Joining us, Skip Bayless from the Insider in Dallas, Mitch Albom from the Detroit Free Press, and Michael Wilbon from the Washington Post. Good to see no groin pulls or hamstring injuries for you guys in the offseason. We were just discussing Jimmy Johnson. Mitch, is he an old-style coach that can really will his team into a victory?
Well, I think if you're going to yell boo, you better make sure that your players believe in ghosts. And I think what Jimmy Johnson does well is what Joe touched on a little earlier, is that he gets a lot of young players who are fresh out of college. They're used to working for coaches who scream and they go through a wall. He works well with those kind of players. Veteran players, a lot of them say, what are you yelling for? I've been here longer than you have. So I think the players that he works with are part of what makes Jimmy Johnson so successful.
It's true, Mitch. He did have about 10 rookies and free agents in that lineup yesterday, and I think 23 new players that Don Shula didn't have. But as we saw in Dallas and now in Miami, if you're a veteran player and you're not with the program, he'll scream at you and tell you to get out. He duped the Cowboys when he first got there, and veteran players know if they want to win. This guy's track record makes it so that veteran players also listen.
Michael, Jimmy's the best I've ever seen at creating mystique. I don't think there's anybody like him in football today. He's the master psychologist. He creates this aura of fear around him. What's the guy going to do next? But when he goes for it on 4th and a foot, everybody on the field believes Jimmy's going to do the right thing.
So it's good to see that the summer off has dimmed your just worship of former Cowboy coaches. I think it's, well, first of all, he's only coached one game. Let's not canonize the guy yet.
Second of all, a couple of Super Bowls.
With this team. But second of all, a lot of these guys in the modern era, Vermeil, Ditka, they don't last very long. They tend to burn out. Lombardi was a long, long time ago. You tend to have coaches now who like to get along with their players, a players coach.
Well, I can think of a couple who don't care about getting along. To some degree, Bill Cowher, who, I mean, we see that frothing over on the sideline, but to a much higher degree to me, Ray Rhodes is a guy that has put Philadelphia, took a Philadelphia team that really was shorthanded, went 10-6 last year. I think they can win the division this year. Even his news conferences are smoldering. He has as much intensity as anybody.
Hey, guys, you see it. I mean, the outward approach that we see in sound bites and media interviews, I mean, is that not really the way that the coaches treat their players, and we shouldn't be reading too much into how they act in front of a camera?
Well, the guy that we should talk about coming up tonight is Dave Wannstedt, who I thought was going to be a chip off Jimmy's block. He's the ultimate players coach. He's a screamer, but he's also a hugger, and I think he motivates more by love from the players than by fear.
They don't play like it, Skip.
Well,
I mean, I don't see that motivation necessarily. I think a lot of those young coaches, particularly from Jimmy's camp, he had so much emotion. They're very cerebral, professorial types. And I don't see the emotion maybe that some of his
difference. Well, Jimmy's a much better judge of talent than Dave Wannstedt has proven to be so far. He doesn't have the players.
Now, the point that Mike brought up before about coaches not being all that they are on sound bites and in front of the TV cameras, I think even more so that's what the players. Players are most concerned with their image, and I think on the field, and I've always thought this about the Dallas Cowboys who are playing tonight, I think this group tends to coach themselves on the field, and what goes on in a huddle has as much to do with how a team is coached as it does on the sidelines, and you won't hear any of the stuff that you're hearing in front of the cameras and what you hear in the huddle. But I think certain
that's why Buffalo and San Francisco have also had that sort of self-management, which is why those teams have stayed there so long, I think. I mean, great coaching, obvly, but yeah, you're talking about players.
Like Jim Kelly, you're talking about.
Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, and Bruce Smith. What they did last night, particularly Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly, was pretty amazing. But you grow used to that because they've done it so long.
Now, speaking of the Cowboys, the guy I think they're going to miss even more than they know, the guy who is their leader, I think on the field anyway, is Michael Irvin. He's the rocket fuel of this team. He's the emotional, demonstrative, verbal leader of this football team.
And that's funny because it's usually a quarterback.
Yeah, but he's the rocket fuel. They thrive on him.
It's going to be up to Dion to replace the on-field, maybe some of the off-field. You'll talk about Dion when you guys...
Dion doesn't talk enough yet. He needs to talk in the huddle, too.
Well, you guys get to talk more in your Prime Monday Minutes when you come back, so we'll see you guys in a little bit, and we will go back to Chicago for more on tonight's Bears-Cowboys game. You get a good look at Soldier Field right on Lake Michigan. Prime Monday continues after this.
Yes, I predict. Bush, the Cranberries, Fugees, Hootie and the Blowfish, Kiss, Metallica, Alanis Morissette, Oasis, The Smashing Pumpkin, Mariah Carey, Dennis Rodman, Snoop Doggy Dogg,
Appearing at the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards, hosted by Dennis Miller. Consult your local listings.
Channel it.
No matter what size fax you send, no matter where in the world you send it, AT&T guarantees it'll get there. Because now AT&T has 70% more international routes, which means more ways to get around trouble and more ways to steer clear of danger. So your international fax gets through, no matter where in the world you send it. Guaranteed network reliability at a competitive price, only from AT&T for the life of your business.
For 1 year, Chris is forced to wear a hat identical to the one Vince Lombardi wore. He begs his father to let him wear a different hat because all the kids at school are beating him up, and even some teachers.
Dad, God love him, responded with a quote from Lombardi himself.
Football is a symbol of what's best in American life. It's a symbol of courage and of stamina.
To this day, Chris still has no idea what that quote has to do with kids beating the bejesus out of him.
Troy Aikman, guys, there he is, hanging out. One of 3 quarterbacks, Joe. I know you were trying to figure out the other 2 who have won 3 Super Bowl rings. Terry Bradshaw.
That's right.
Joe Montana.
I knew that.
I know you did.
I knew
60 and 38, his regular season record. Goes for 61 tonight. And when Prime Monday continues, more on tonight's game and the troubles Troy may face without Michael and Jay. And we'll talk Minnesota's Warren Moon. Banged up this week, all wet a couple of weeks ago.
We're out of here. No, please keep your hands on the card. We'll come back for that later. That one needs batteries. You're gonna get Daddy in trouble. Excuse me? No, that one definitely has too many parts. We gotta go.
Most people who play sports have feet that are flat, like this. Some are normal, and some have high arches. Companies like Adidas understand this and make shoes that suit different types of feet. The right one will help enhance your performance. There's just one problem. Which shoe belongs on which foot? Nobody knows the athlete's foot like the athlete's foot. See the latest from Adidas at the athlete's foot now.
Sweet dream, baby. Sweet dream, baby. Sweet dream, baby. How long must I dream?
Sweet dreams from Doubletree.
From ESPN Labs, ESPN Net Sports Zone. Updated nearly 1,000 times an hour, it always has something new to make you a better fan. ESPN Net Sports Zone. Technology for you.
Johnson steps away from the pressure. Long for the end zone. Wide open. Carter. Touchdown.
That one of the big highlights yesterday, Brad Johnson's first National Football League touchdown pass answered some questions about the capability of Warren Moon's backup quarterback in Minnesota. The starting quarterback of the Vikings turns 40 this November, yet was given a 3-year, $15 million contract this summer. Add his CFL and college days, and Warren Moon has played 23 years and nearly 300 games at quarterback. But as we see in tonight's soundtracks, no amount of experience could prepare Warren Moon for one summer night this preseason.
I just hope it doesn't rain too hard. I mean, too soon. It's going to rain at some point.
Far left. 40 gut check on one. Justin! Brady 88! Brady 88! Hut!
Ball just flickered.
They got up in it.
Yeah.
Has a chance to throw it early on a down. You want to go the waggle, start out, or you want to try to run until you get your ball handling with it?
Explode, double right. 70 waggle, double down 2. Ready? Purple 88! Purple 88! Hunt, hunt!
Okay, I just want to just check.
Yeah, just wet.
The slippery for me, too.
Need a little time on this now. Spread right spear. Option right sluggo. On one, ready? Red, 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 red. Down, son. Red, Houston. Red, Houston. Hunt, hunt. I'm playing in slow motion. All right, I'm gonna get sharp on this.
All right, there you go. Take a solid drive.
Purple 80! Hunt, 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 hunt. Hold up. Split left. 90 waggle special from gun on one. Purple 80! Purple 80! Hunt! Hold on to that damn ball. I mean, man, these guys wouldn't stop us. They would not stop us.
Well, Detroit stopped Warren Moon and company, but Brad Johnson bailed them out yesterday. If you weren't with us at the beginning of this show, Thursday is the day we should find out if Warren Moon's going to play for the Minnesota Vikings next week. All right, let's go back to talking about the NFC Central team that is in the news tonight. The Chicago Bears taking on the Dallas Cowboys. There's ABC's Lynn Swan, ready to work the Monday Night Football broadcast. Swanee, you dealt with the rain there in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, the game that was postponed but survived it. Hey, Lynn, we're all talking about the Cowboys. Give me a mindset of the Bears coming into this game.
Well, I think the Bears really want to win this ball game because it'll be a confidence builder, a solid block for the entire season. They're playing against the defending Super Bowl champions. And yes, the Cowboys are missing a number of stars. There's questions about Emmitt Smith. There's questions about Dion, but they're still the defending champions. If they go out and play well tonight, that's going to help them along.
One thing Eric Kramer did so successfully last year that Steve Walsh didn't do in the '94 season was throw the deep ball. What does that mean to an offense when you have a guy who at least takes some shots 20, 30 yards down the field?
Well, it means you stretch that defense and you create some room underneath and you create some room for your running game. One of the things that Dave Wanstead told me a couple of years ago when he got Curtis Conway is that he needed Curtis Conway. He needed that speed. He needed the deep threat. He needed some respect for the passing game. This is the third year for Curtis Conway. If he emerges as a top receiver, it is going to help this offense immeasurably.
We've talked about Deion Sanders, the wide receiver, but the Williams guys may be the important wide receivers, Kevin Williams and Stepfret Williams. Do you think those guys are ready for what they're going to see tonight?
No, absolutely not. And I don't think they're ready. I mean, number one, I don't think Deion can become a receiver in a preseason. There's too much he has to learn. Number two, Kevin Williams had a good season at the end of the season last year, a couple of good games. He has never been the go-to guy. I don't think he's prepared. We'll find out tonight. Stepfret, his eyes are going to be like a doe in a headlight.
Swanee, we will watch his eyes, watch your eyes, and everybody else. We'll see all you guys coming up at the top of the hour for Monday Night Football.
All right, Mike.
Lynn Swan joining us from Soldier Field in Chicago. Well, the Deion Sanders adjustment is part of what Troy Aikman must adjust to tonight. After all, will his offensive players who haven't been through a regular season game with the pressure of a defense like the Bears attacking them, will they adjust at the key times? It's something we need to watch, and Ron Jaworski is going to explain and show us why in tonight's playbook. Where is Ron?
I'm right here, Mike. You know, over the years, I've looked at, thousands of reels on Dallas Cowboy offense, and very seldom did I see the total blitz. This preseason, the Denver Broncos got after Dallas with a total blitz 3 times in the first half of one of their games. And you'll see it right here. You see the 4 down linemen in the position. They're attacking the quarterback. They're in their down position. They're coming after him. Now you see the linebackers moving up. Romanowski and Aldridge right there at the top of your screen. Here you see Crockett coming off the corner. He's on Kevin Williams. He's looking in. The ball is snapped. Here they come. All 8 of them come. Let's go back. You've only got 7 blockers. You see Kevin Williams in the slot. Crockett comes off the slot. No adjustment. No adjustment at all. What you have to do in that situation is adjust, or else this is what happens. The pressure comes to the quarterback, and in this case, the ball is knocked down on the sight adjust to Stepfret Williams. So what that does, it creates a lot of problems with your offensive scheme. And when you're rushing 8 guys, you only have 7 to pick them up. That means your receivers must sight adjust or make some sort of adjustment in their route. So the quarterback who only has 1.5 seconds, Joe, can get rid of the ball. And I think the problem tonight is with all the changes in the Dallas offense, they could have some mental breakdowns.
Yeah, they could. You know, some guys could buy a little more time than 1.5 seconds if they could run around a little bit. Ronnie, you, 1 second maybe because you lumbered back a little bit. I know that. And me, about a half a second because I was too stupid to see the blitzes half the time. I think the thing with Troy, though, is here's a guy, in my opinion, is mechanically the soundest quarterback in football. He takes great drops. He sets his footwork absolutely fantastically. He's got great balance. The thing to do is throw blitzes at him, try and upset his timing, try and upset his ability to get balance to make the great throws. And the other thing is, Ronnie, though, it's sort of a double-edged sword if you go after Troy Aikman. You don't have anybody in the secondary to take care of Emmitt Smith. If they happen to pop somebody through the line like Emmitt, there's nobody there to tackle him. And Sterling, you can take your chances and go after Troy, but if Emmitt gets through there, it's goodbye.
And you got to give Ernie Zampese some credit because he is going to give that offensive line and Emmitt every opportunity to beat up this blitz. And the one thing you got to look at from that Cowboy offense is the fact that if you blitz and you miss a wide receiver like a Deion Sanders or a Kevin Williams, you got other problems. So I think the whole thing is they must get to Troy Aikman. They must, they must get to Troy Aikman, force him to move his feet because the Bears feel like he's not as accurate if they can get him to move his feet.
And a reminder, Brian Cox is going to be rushing the passer, and some of those keep pass rushing down.
From all over.
Everywhere. Ahead, some more news, including the off-field headache the Detroit Lions may have to face, guys, and deal with all season regarding their quarterback. Why were the Dolphin rookies able to come right in and look like veterans? One of you asked the question, Sterling has the answer, and the Jets. The quarterback went down, and he went down off.
When I started racing, I couldn't be choosy about a sponsor. Now, 25 years later, I only work with the people I believe in, like Auto Value Parts stores.
Win a trip for 2 to Hawaii, complete with aisle seats to the NFL Pro Bowl during the Auto Value Sweepstakes. Visit your nearby Auto Value Parts store and register for all the sweepstakes excitement.
Auto Value Parts stores, the parts you want, the value you expect.
What we do, the job we do.
Okay, guys, listen up.
It's the most important job I can think of.
You've got a flight control check. Lewis and Randall.
That flight is a big part of what makes a trip good or bad.
The captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign.
And a good flight isn't the same for everybody.
So everybody pulls their weight.
We got a 34-minute turnaround on this one. Let's do it.
Everyone knows the drill.
Because a lot of times, passengers are just looking for someone to find a way.
Let's see if we can reroute you through another city.
Someone to make it happen.
One airline has over 80,000 people who understand what it takes to be something special.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you aboard American Airlines. Our flight this morning to the East Coast should be a smooth one. We'll be flying at an altitude of 33,000 feet.
I'll buy 10 of these. You're Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders? It's him. You're the greatest, man. Mind if I get a picture? Thanks, bro. You mind if I write a check? Sure, Deion. I'm just gonna need to see some ID.
Say what?
Yes, like driver's license, a library card.
Checks. What a pain.
Michigan license? Employee ID.
But now there's a better way. The Visa Check Card. It's an ATM card with a Visa logo that deducts from your checking account automatically everywhere Visa's accepted.
I'm gonna have to call to see if you can cover this.
The Visa Check Card works just like a check, only better.
Inside the Numbers is brought to you by Visa, the preferred card of the NFL. It's everywhere you want to be.
Our journey inside the numbers could go inside the whirlpool at the Jets training complex. Poor Neil O'Donnell. I guess he had to keep thinking, I'm making $5 million a season because he got beat up real bad. 9 sacks of Jets quarterbacks in all. Compare the sack numbers for this week 1 in the NFL. Mistake-filled, sloppy performances all around. More sacks this year, though, than any of the last 4 opening weeks. Inside the numbers for this week. Well, every week after the games are done, we've asked you to hop on the ESPN Net Sports Zone and ask a question of Sterling or Joe. And here is one for Joe. Why so many field goals this week? Do you think the NFL is going to revamp the rules again? That comes from Jason in Oregon for Joe.
Jason in Oregon. No, they are not going to revamp the rules. 49 touchdowns were scored yesterday. 53 out of 60 field goals were kicked yesterday. If you'll remember back a couple years ago, they changed the rules on offense to try and open up the offense a little because they felt too many field goals were being scored. They also, remember, tried to penalize the field goal units and saying to coaches, listen, if you want to attempt a 50-yard field goal, we're going to bring the ball back to the spot of the attempt. It's not going to go to the 20-yard line. That is not dissuaded. Jason, all I can say with you is things aren't going to change. Deal with it.
John Carney, San Diego, 5 field goals, including a couple of 50-yarders.
Every year he does that.
Let's go back and surf the net a little more, huh?
Yeah.
For Sterling. Next question is asked by Gil. And Gil is in Florida. Sterling, what is Jimmy Johnson's secret formula for finding impact players in the draft?
Well, Gil, it's funny you should ask because we talk about this in our meetings day in and day out. And the one thing you talk about Jimmy Johnson as a motivator, the players that he goes after are guys that are self-motivated. The Emmitt Smiths and Michael Irvins and the two rookies that you saw earlier in our show. Guys that are self-motivated, that they realize the better they play, the more money they're going to make. The better they play, the better they make the team. The more touchdowns and catches and all that they want to get only makes their team better. When you got guys like that are self-motivated, you point them in the right direction, Mike, they're going to get you where you need to go.
Well, I mean, think about what we talked about day 2 of the draft. Jimmy was stockpiling picks, busiest on day 2. He's already stockpiled a couple of picks with the Stoyanovich and the Kirby trades.
Oh, sure.
Builds through the draft. As Prime Monday continues, Chris Berman from New York in the Monday Night Football studio will go backstage with Emmitt Smith as they are walking into Soldier Field in Chicago, getting ready for the Bears home opener.
Thank you for calling the Scudder Funds.
This is Eric Bjornson. How can I help you? Hi, I'm very happy with my Scudder investments domestically, but I understand that you're very good internationally. Yes. Well, how much do people invest generally internationally? Well, that depends. As a rule of thumb, Scudder thinks that up to 30% of a stock portfolio should be invested internationally. What are your goals? Do you have
no commission, no sales pressure. Talk to us before you invest. Call 1-800-SCUDDER.
Flossmoor Commons is right for you. Everything about you is distinctive, contemporary, and confident. Flossmoor Commons, where you'll find distinctive apparel for men and women, plus an assortment of gifts and fine jewelry. Flossmoor Commons, where you can enjoy casual dining, a relaxing afternoon in the spa or salon. Flossmoor Commons, because you know exactly where to find the quality and style you expect. Flossmoor Commons, it's right for you.
You turn for college football's most complete Saturday preview show, the best in the game. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit bring you the inside scoop on the day's biggest games. College Game Day, Saturday at 11:30, only on ESPN.
There are enough things in your life you have to wait for. Your sports news shouldn't be one of them. ESPN News Network, the 24-hour sports news network from ESPN. Who else?
Welcome back to Prime Monday. It was not a good Sunday in Tampa. The Buccaneers lose Tony Dungy's debut by 31 to the Green Bay Packers, and the Bucs have a key day in their future in Tampa tomorrow. To explain about that, Chris Mortensen rejoins us from Atlanta. Mort, what is going on tomorrow, and why was yesterday so important to tomorrow in Tampa?
Well, the Buccaneers have never had great timing, Mike, and you take a look at tomorrow. Tomorrow is an election day in Tampa. There is a referendum in which the Glazer family have all their stadium hopes riding on. The Tampa Stadium they have now has been deemed outdated. There's a referendum tomorrow. The taxes that are in this referendum, 12 cents on the dollar would go to a new stadium. A poll going into the weekend, Mike, showed that it was a close call, and right now, because of the performance by the Buccaneers against the Packers, some people are predicting defeat for it. And, of course, that's what the NFL wants to avoid. They don't want to have a stadium talk and Buccaneers going to Cleveland, so the league really hoping that the voters come through for the Buccaneers tomorrow.
Keep an eye on what happens in that vote. Now, also in the NFC Central, Scott Mitchell. Trent Dilfer struggled. Scott Mitchell, 4 interceptions, a career high. Last time he had 4 interceptions was his last game, the playoff game against Philadelphia. There's also a contract that's outstanding with Scott Mitchell. What's going on with that?
Mike, I spoke with Chuck Schmidt, the general manager of the Lions, a little while ago, and basically the club wants to suspend all contract talks with Scott Mitchell because they don't want to distract him through the rest of the year. Scott Mitchell was one of the original plaintiffs on the Reggie White lawsuit that led to the settlement to the collective bargaining agreement. By putting his name on that lawsuit, he is guaranteed total free agency at the end of this year. Now, the Lions do want to sign Mitchell. They want to sign him to a $5 million per year contract. Mitchell was asking for closer to $6 million. I spoke with a personnel director on a club that may be looking for a quarterback next year, Mike. He thinks Mitchell should have taken that $5 million because he said Mitchell ought to take a look at the people around him, the Herman Moore's, Brett Perryman's, Johnny Morton's, Barry Sanders. He's not a standalone quarterback. He should appreciate what he has around him, this personnel director said.
We'll see if that continues through the season. More off-season, off-the-field problems were highlighted, but not just limited to Dallas. Donnell Wolford of the Bears, he was in hot water this offseason, but he was not suspended. Explain his interesting predicament.
No, in fact, Donnell Wolford was worried he would be suspended for this opener, in fact, the first month because of his second DUI. But Paul Tagliabue decided he would not suspend Wolford because Wolford has been docked 4 game checks by the NFL Management Council for violation of the drug policy. It's the stiffest penalty ever for alcohol abuse. So basically, he's going to cover Deion Sanders for free tonight and cover everybody for the rest of the month for free, Mike.
A guy who would give you NFL information for free, Chris Mortensen. Mort, thanks. You got the best view of Atlanta from your house there.
Beautiful
thanks.
here.
See you later, Mort. When we come back on Prime Monday, Chris Berman joins us. Thoughts on a Cowboy who's come back for one more go-around. More from Soldier Field. Leslie Visser visits with the coach of the Bears.
How to achieve success.
For me, it's the details. In golf, that means taking it one stroke at a time. And at Jiffy Lube, we do it one car at a time. And we offer the quality of Pennzoil. So even though we've serviced almost 100 million cars, the one that matters most is the one we're working on now.
If it doesn't...
Rusty.
Well, the torch officially passed tonight. Dick Butkus, who is responsible for passing the linebacking torch in Chicago, handed it to Mike Singletary, took good care of it. Now Brian Cox. Bob Englehart's illustrations, once again a regular Prime Monday feature. Another regular feature of our show over its first 3 years has been Chris Berman's weekly feature. As you may know, this year Chris will spend his Mondays at ABC anchoring the Monday Night Football halftime segments with highlights from the Sunday games. Chris will still join us each Prime Monday with his thoughts on a few players to keep an eye on in tonight's game. Chris?
All right, Michael, thank you. Another night, another new place. But first, let's go to the game tonight. Tonight will be the first time that Bears head coach Dave Wannstedt sees his old Chargers. He will find a lot has changed since he left the Dallas Cowboys after helping Jimmy Johnson win Super Bowl 27. In fact, there are only 4 starters left from that team that beat the Buffalo Bills out at the Rose Bowl. Tony Casillas is gone and come back. Kevin Smith, Charles Haley, and Tony Tolbert. Leon Lett, of course, is still at Dallas. He wasn't a starter in that game, although everybody remembers his play with Don Beebe. When Wannstedt's defense won that Super Bowl, that year they were ranked #1 overall in the NFL, #1 against the run, but nobody went to the Pro Bowl. He has a similar style defense in Chicago. He's hoping to bring that same classic team-style defense and get them back to the playoffs, which he got them to not last year, but the year before that. Dave Wannstedt's defensive style, though, has stayed with Dallas. Butch Davis was the defensive coordinator, and they won Super Bowl 28. Dave Campo, the defensive coordinator now, and last year when they won in Super Bowl 30. Well, one thing that Wannstedt will see when he looks across the field tonight is a guy that he admired greatly, Bill Bates, who tonight begins his 14th campaign as a Dallas Cowboy. 200 games if you add the regular and the postseason games together. Bates is one of the few holdovers in Dallas from the Landry era. Mark Tuinei, who's injured tonight. Nate Newton goes back to the Tom Landry days. Michael Irvin was Landry's last #1 draft pick. Herschel Walker was in Dallas and much well-traveled. But Bates is undrafted out of Tennessee in 1983, but if you looked at Hart, he would have been a #1 draft pick. And you might forget that the reason they have a Pro Bowl position for special teams is because of Bill Bates. He was the first ever Pro Bowl representative for special teamers, the NFC, in the 1985 game. And oh, one other thing, Mike, if you and the guys aren't doing anything, about 10:20, 10:30 tonight, just tune into ABC and give me a wave, okay?
I think we have no choice He said it, we will do it, promise. And we'll keep an eye on Eric Kramer in the first and second half as well, who set team records in so many different categories, including 29 touchdown passes last year. Well, with so much focus on the Super Bowl champion Cowboys, let's not forget Kramer's team, the Bears, considered by some to be one of the teams that's going to give it a good run for the NFC wild card this year. Things started so well for Chicago last year, then they came crashing down as the Bears closed 3-5. Let's talk more about the Bears and go back to Soldier Field and rejoin Leslie Visser.
Mike, that is true. The Bears cut their ties to the glory years when they let Kevin Butler go. So they look at tonight as a chance to define a new era, to prove that they are the primetime players that they would like to be. But they're going to have to show a much improved defense. And a little while ago, I talked to Dave Wannstedt about it.
I believe that we're going to improve with our pass rush and our coverage. Tonight will be a real good test for us. You know, I think Brian Cox will add a little bit something from a pass rush standpoint, and we're healthy in the secondary, and Walt Harris has done a nice job for a rookie, so I believe we're a little bit better there.
Walt Harris is, of course, your promising rookie, but can any rookie have enough work in preseason to face Troy Aikman?
No. But that's the way it goes. I mean, you just hope that Walt hasn't figured out really what's going on yet. You know, it's just another game, and he'll come out here, and he's prepared well all week. But I really don't think he's probably too young to really understand the Troy Aikman and the Super Bowl and all the things that go along with it. So that's good. I think where he's at right now, that's just where we want him.
And what about for Deion Sanders? You know, might we expect people to give him a little extra welcome coming off the line?
Well, you know, we're going to treat him really no different than we treat any other receiver. You know, obviously he's got great talent. We know that. We respect that. But we've got a defensive game plan that we're going to stick with, and we believe in, and we've been working on, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, the offense won't have Rashaan Salam tonight. He'll be replaced by Raymond Harris. But a little while ago, Brian Cox on defense, Brian Cox came over and he whispered to me, we are going to beat the world champion Dallas Cowboys. We'll see, Mike.
Well, Leslie, what is Brian Cox's feeling on these Cowboys? He's been in the AFC so long with the Dolphins. Does he have any feelings on Dallas?
Yeah, interestingly, Mike, he said that he doesn't think that Emmitt Smith is the best running back in the NFL. He doesn't even think it's Barry Sanders. He thinks it's Marshall Faulk. He said he thinks that Emmitt Smith is greatly helped by that tremendous offensive line. Fighting words, Mike.
Gets to back up those words tonight. Leslie, thank you. We'll see you later on SportsCenter after the game for all the recap and highlights. When we come back, Leslie does return. A visit backstage with Emmitt Smith. The Cowboys star talks about the offseason troubles in Big D.
Is the off-season hard for some players to manage? You know, you're so used to structure during the year.
I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of other players, but for me.
68, Chris wants to go as a Pirate. Dad says okay, but it has to be a Paul Brown Pirate.
Emmitt Smith, 100 career touchdowns in 93 games. The unbelievable numbers last year, and he starts to put the 96 numbers to paper in a little bit. Emmitt's greatness is amplified because there are so many other weapons on the Cowboy offense that you can't just focus on Smith, but he may also be, believe it or not, underappreciated because of the Cowboys' galaxy of stars. His NFL record, 25 rushing touchdowns last year and 1,700-yard season, well, that has Smith in position to threaten the all-time records at his position. Leslie Visser rejoins us, and once again this season goes backstage to find out more about the league's biggest stars, and Emmitt is first up. Leslie?
Mike, I did spend some time with him, and while other Cowboys had different extracurricular activities this summer, Emmitt fulfilled a promise he made to his mother 6 years ago to get his college degree. Well, last week I caught up with Emmitt, and we talked about his family, his business, his game, and his goals.
Let's go, team.
It's almost like football players, they can't play with that negative idea, right, that they might get hurt.
You can't. If you go on the field thinking that you're going to get hurt, there's a good chance you might end up getting hurt. So, you know, I try not to think about it much at all.
Do you think that it's going to be hard for it all to come together now? Missing Novacek, isn't that a greater absence than people think?
His absence is the reason why we play with Darryl and Herschel at the tight end spot. Not only that, but Bjornsson has been hurt too as well. Novacek is a big part of this offense. I mean, he runs routes better than any tight end that I've seen in the league. And, you know, I think losing him is going to be very key to the offense, and not to mention our great wide receiver that's going to be gone for about 4 weeks as well.
Did I read somewhere that you sold pecans?
Back where I grew up at, we had some pecan trees, and you know, they fall. Every year they fall to the ground, and sometimes you go shake them and make them fall.
And then put them in a bag and
put
sell
them in a bag and go sell them.
On the corner?
No, not necessarily on the corner. You take them to the same recycling place where they collect the cans as well as the pecans, and made your money that way.
Did you think you had a head for business always? I mean,
I don't necessarily think I had a head, but I had the desire to go out and pursue after business. I think spending some time with my grandfather, you know, talking about the value of a dollar and how to save a dollar and so forth. He sort of shares the same philosophy of a Jerry Jones.
Was it important to you to show that you were more than a football player, not just get a car
It's always,
dealership?
you know, it's always been important for me to establish a personality off the football field, and not only that, but to be able to set apart that, take advantage of all the opportunities that I have presented to me off the field in the business manner. Some of them are going through scrutiny right now because they're fairly new, like my cellular phone business is going through utmost scrutiny right now because it's fairly new. But M&A has been on the right track. One thing I can say about Emmett Zone, though, it started off on the right track, and it's going to continue to grow.
Was the college degree always paramount of importance to you? It was always something that...
It was something that was definitely important for me. You know, my mom always she wanted me to get it, without a doubt, and I cannot take that away from her. She stressed that from day one when I made up my mind I was going to leave school early. She said, you got to go back and get your education. I told her I would. But just knowing the criticism surrounding college athletes coming out early, oh, they'll never return. They're going to get to the NFL, make all kinds of money, and they're going to end up doing all this stuff. They ain't going to forget about school. Just knowing the criticism surrounding that, and knowing that I needed to do that for myself personally, and not only that for my mom, was enough for me to go back and get it. I wish I could go back and pull out all the articles of everybody that criticized him. He's not going to come back, and he's not going to do this, and be able to put that diploma in their face and show it to them. I did do it, so eat your words and ball up their words and put it in their mouth. That would be great for me. That would be great.
Talk a little bit about that, when the Walter Payton goal became...
Eric Dickerson told me, he said, never tell the media about your goals. Somehow this one right here slipped out. It's just a goal. It's headlines. My major goal right now is getting back healthy. I can't chase after Payton if I'm not healthy. Let's talk about that.
Emmett is 300 yards ahead of where Walter Payton was when he was the same age at 27. And Emmett's 9,000 yards. He's probably going to make it. Sweetness, of course, had 16,700 yards. Will Emmett do it? Well, I don't know. But Emmett told me that earning his college degree was harder than winning the Super Bowl. Sterling, I wouldn't bet against him.
Well, I wouldn't either, Leslie, and he's exactly right. But the one thing about Emmitt Smith and players like Emmitt Smith, they take care of business first. Going after Walter Payton's record is going to be a pleasure because he's won rings, he's won rushing titles, he's been relatively healthy throughout his career, he's still young. The one thing you look at, that's the only selfish ambition that Emmitt Smith has left. And I tell you what, he doesn't want to put the pressure on the guys calling the plays or the guys blocking for him. But, Joe, I look for it to be very interesting down the stretch.
I think, you know, the stretch actually is a little bit shorter than I think people realize. For Emmett, he really has to carry the burden of this offense through the first 5 or 6 weeks of this season. He's got to be the guy that has to go out, make yards, make plays, give Troy the opportunity to get the ball down the field to K-Dub and also Dion. So, Mike, to me, instead of looking, and I'm sure Emmett's not, but looking way down the road to a Walter Payton type of a goal, for him, it's let me get through these first 5, do what I need to do with the big guys up front, and then we'll deal with things after that.
With everything else, as you said, this could be Emmett's month of September to really smack people across the face and say, man, he is one of the best running backs of all time. As we continue on Prime Monday, we'll talk Mike Ditka, take you back to the Ditka days and our distant replay. And at the top of the hour, if you're not going to watch football, you can sneak a peek over to our holiday baseball. There's Junior, Ken Griffey Jr. in Seattle, a game and a half behind Chicago, chasing the wild card. They play the Sox at 9 Eastern.
Chris Berman for Kills Primetime Primers.
It's Al, ready to buy a second-string stain blocker when the paint manager catches the oversight and leads him back to Kills, the original primetime primer. Kills is the pro's choice for interior stain blocking.
Yesterday's stats, the season schedule, two-way communication with your favorite players, following the game online Sunday. The NFL's official website, NFL.com. Check it out. One more question off the ESPN at Sports Zone for yesterday. This one's for Ron Jaworski, and it comes from Skip in Arkansas. Without Rashaan Salam, do the Bears have a serious running threat? Jaws?
You know, Mike, in Chicago, the running game is fueled by the passing game. But that doesn't mean Salam will not be missed. The guy did have 1,074 yards last year, but they do have some quality backups, and I think they'll use them. Robert Green, who had 570 yards last year, also had a 5.3 yards per carry average. And Raymond Harris, I think, is the key guy. He's not only a fine blocker, he's a fine runner, and an excellent receiver. So they do have some guys that can fill in for Salam, Mike.
Salam is out with a knee injury, and so there is more pressure on the Ohio State grad Raymond Harris tonight. You know, speaking of Ohio, the city of Cleveland, with in many ways an angry response to the first Sunday without the Browns yesterday. I don't know if you caught it, but at sports bars, many watched the Ravens hoping they would lose. NFL cities without the NFL is on the mind of Mitch Albom, who kicks off our Prime Monday Minutes.
Thanks, Mike. Like any red-blooded American, I was moved by Sunday's pictures of fans outside an empty stadium in Cleveland burning the Ravens' uniforms. But I was just as taken by what I didn't see Sunday. Where were the Los Angeles football mourners? I saw no shots of Raiders fans crying through their eye patches. I saw no surfers hanging their heads saying, "I miss the Rams, dude." Have we forgotten that while Cleveland suffers its first fall without the pigskin, L.A. is going into its second season in the other NFL, the No Football League? This isn't some wannabe big town like Nashville. This is L.A., folks, the second biggest city in America and the entertainment capital of the world. No football, 2 baseball teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 hockey teams, and no football? I don't know what astounds me more, that the league would let this market sit empty, or that the fans barely seem to notice. What gives, L.A.? If Jack Nicholson doesn't show, it's not worth going? Come on, get angry. The closest you got to a pro football run back is O.J. on the 405 freeway. It's funny, 45 years ago, L.A. defeated Cleveland for the NFL championship. Today, both teams are ghosts. The difference is, in L.A., so are the fans. Skip?
Dear Deion, you are quite simply the greatest cornerback ever. You, Deion Sanders, are as feared by receivers as Colonel Sanders is by chickens. You control entire games from the cornerback position while rarely needing to tackle. Yet you are so gifted that you sometimes lose perspective on what you cannot do. Okay, you're a much better baseball player than Michael Jordan, but you're never going to be a star. Jerry Jones talked you out of wasting yourself on baseball by dangling two-way stardom in football. But face it, Deion, playing receiver is just too dangerous. You were banged up during the preseason, and your injury risk will increase dramatically if you play both ways full time. Now, did Shakespeare also need to sing and dance? I know the Cowboys need you at receiver right now, and I know you get bored at cornerback, but for the long haul, save yourself for what you do best. That's your ticket to the Hall of Fame. Michael?
In Miami, Brian Cox was a nuisance. In fact, on 29 of the 30 NFL teams, Cox's behavior would make him nothing more than an overly aggressive, antisocial wild man. But with the Chicago Bears, he's a perfect fit. The Bears' defense, since the departure of Mike Ditka, has been soft and wimpy and generally a discredit to the legacy of Butkus, Buffon, and Singletary. A team that used to be known for mashing people has most recently become known for that prissy West Coast offense. Cox is just the guy to change that. Not only because he's the best player the Bears have had in the middle since Singletary's retirement, but because he's not going to tolerate the passive nature of some of the Bears players and coaches. Much of the problem with the Bears' Charmin defense has been lack of passion, not lack of talent. If Dave Wannstedt and his staff can't generate the proper emotion, bet on Cox to do it. The very behavior that seemed overboard with the Dolphins very well may be what gets the Bears back to playing manly defense and back in the playoffs. Mike?
That's the emotional side of that, Mike. We'll talk about the XO side of Brian Cox's addition and the Bears defense as we look at the playbook when Prime Monday comes back.
Some of these great games in your home this Saturday. See Friday's USA Today for Saturday's game plan.
Playbook is brought to you by Prudential. Live well. Make a plan. Be your own rock.
Guy known for his defense on the other end, Deion Sanders, will be a big part of tonight's game, but we're going to talk Chicago's defense. Their biggest offseason acquisitions were on that side of the ball. The Bears signed free agent Brian Cox, as we've discussed, and they drafted Walt Harris in the first round, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. As Leslie told us earlier, he will start for the Bears tonight on a defense that just plain out struggled in the second half of the season. In tonight's playbook, Jaws looks at how the Chicago defense matches up with that Dallas offense.
You know, and Walt Harris, Mike, will probably not be too concerned tonight because I think he's going to get some safety help. In studying the Bears' defense, what I found was a coverage scheme that I think presents some real tough matchup problems for the Cowboys. What you see here is a great base defense to play against the Dallas Cowboys. I like the ends position wide. Al Fontenot is lined up outside the weak side tackle, and Alonzo Spellman is head up over the tight end. Their positioning allows them to funnel the Cowboys' predominant between the tackles running game to the inside, where the stacked linebackers are in position to read the movement of the Dallas offensive line and attack the proper gaps. I also like, and you see this better from the sideline camera, the man coverage scheme on the wideouts, the tight end, and the two backs. The Cowboys' wide receivers, Williams and Sanders, simply do not demand more. And Darrell Johnston, while an outstanding fullback, is just not a tight end. What this scheme also does is free up the safeties. Here, Anthony Marshall and Marty Carter. They have the freedom to react to the passing game or to help in run support against the Cowboys' predominant weak side running attack. Here, it's a pass. The Bears single up the weak side wideout, who in the Cowboys' offense is Kevin Williams. On the other side, the strong safety Carter rolls to the strong side wide receiver, who will be Deion. That's not a bad idea, given Sanders' only real asset as a receiver is his speed. The middle linebacker, Brian Cox, is matched against the tight end. While Cox's strength is not man coverage on tight ends in the middle, remember, the Cowboys are now playing Johnston at that position. That's another matchup that favors the Bears. This is an excellent tactical way to attack the Cowboy offense. And I like it because Eric Bornson is not going to strike fear in the hearts of any of the linebackers. And that's really the toughest matchup when you play this coverage, is covering a tight end with a linebacker. If Novacek was in there, I wouldn't be that excited about that kind of coverage because Novacek can beat any linebacker that lines up on him. Also, Joe, what I like about this, those safeties have the freedom to attack the run. And I still believe the Cowboys are going to rely on Emmitt Smith tonight.
Oh, Ronnie, you wise one, you. You mentioned a guy. You mentioned Eric Bjornson. I'm going to make a prediction right here. Before this season is over and done with, and I don't think Jay Novacek's going to be able to play, Eric Bjornson will be a great contributor to the Dallas Cowboys where they need him on third down. But the guy that you're going to look at tonight, who I think can exploit that defense, is going to be Herschel Walker. He has to come up with 2 or 3 big plays. When I had a chance to spend a little time with Ernie Zampese, the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, he said, listen, we have to get Herschel the ball 2 or 3 times where we can utilize his great open field ability. That's what they're going to have to do. And this defense matches up the linebackers on the running back. So, Sterling, as we look at this thing, looks to me like Herschel's going to get his chance to make some plays.
Well, I think he also gets his chance to help him out in special teams so they don't have to go 70 or 80 yards. But the one team that knows this type defense as well as the Bears do is the Cowboys. And they see it every day. So don't look for a lot of outside releases and 2 wide receiver sets by the receivers. Look for a lot of inside releases so they can make the double teams happen so Herschel Walker and the other backs, Darrell Johnson and Emmitt Smith, can work on those linebackers. Also, look at this. A lot of slot formations let Kevin Williams, a speed guy, get inside and work on Brian Cox, the middle linebacker. You remember what Jerry Rice did working on the inside receiver. Robert Brooks had an excellent playoff game working on the inside linebackers. I look for the Cowboys to do some of the same things.
I'm going to mark that down. Watch that inside guy. Down. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to call you and wake you up as Prime Monday continues. Tonight's Distant Replay. Of course, you'll be up watching the game. You'll be watching Distant Replay next. Mike Ditka, the Hall of Fame Cowboy tight end, lit into his players and anyone else around.
Yeah, that's your IQ, buddy. 0. Hold up, turnover, son. I'd rather talk to him.
Mike Ditka is in some unique football company. Think about the number of tight ends in the Hall of Fame. 4. If you think that list is small, Ditka is part of an even smaller list. Only he and Tom Flores have won the Super Bowl as a player and a coach. Tonight is the first time since 1968 that Ditka will not be on the sidelines for a regular season Bears-Cowboys game. Ditka, who was a golf club throwing Hall of Fame Cowboy player and eventually became the sideline barking reporter insulting Bears championship coach, he's the subject of tonight's Distant Replay.
He planned a career in dentistry, but Mike Ditka changed his mind after being drafted by the team that symbolized the traits that would make him the NFL's first Hall of Fame tight end.
That was my whole goal, was to make the Chicago Bears. They had a very tough image. You know, you take no prisoners, you put a chip on your shoulder. You know, all the things I thought football was supposed to be, they portrayed. I mean, they were some mean guys. I mean, they were tough, and they played tough.
The Bears were even rougher at the bargaining table. Despite 6 all-pro seasons, Ditka and owner George Halas bitterly feuded over salary. Mike was eventually peddled to the woeful Eagles. But after hitting the wall in Philadelphia, Ditka was rescued by the Super Bowl-bound Cowboys. In Dallas, Mike's competitive fires continued to burn, both on and off the field.
We had racquetball courts in Dallas, and Ditka played everything to win. He might hit you in the head with the racket. He always broke 2 or 3 rackets.
Mike was my golfing partner. We brought our clubs, and we went out and we beat everybody. Now, if we didn't, if we played poorly, I've seen Mike actually literally throw all his clubs in the lake. I saw him break clubs on trees. I saw him break trees.
When he was an assistant at Dallas, I told a close friend of his, someday this guy's going to be a head coach and a good one. But I never dreamed it would be with the Chicago Bears, because he and Coach Halas parted on less than friendly terms. But Coach was a sharp old guy, and he was smart enough to know that Mike could coach the Bears the way he wanted them to be coached.
Mike Ditka is the first guy that came and said, you know, you guys, we're going to win a Super Bowl. And he's the first head coach that walked in and mentioned the word Super Bowl and meant it.
4 years later, Mike's promise was kept. But Ditka was criticized for bestowing a moment of Super Bowl glory upon rookie lineman William Refrigerator Perry, not the NFL's all-time leading rusher.
That was probably the most disturbing thing in my career that bothered me, is when, you know, people said, wow, you didn't give the ball to Walter to score in a Super Bowl. I think it hurt him. I really do. If I had one thing to do over again, I would make sure that he took the ball in the end zone. You know, the only thing I can ever say, you know, I was fortunate enough to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He can have mine. They can take mine out of the record book and give it to him.
Ditka's behavior made Peyton cry, but Mike also made Walter laugh, albeit unintentionally.
Mike was rapping and raising. He was yelling. He got ready to punch one of the trunks. So Ditka thought it was like that old plywood, like when he was playing. So he drew back, and on his climax, he hit it. Boom! You could tell that something was wrong with his hand. He grimaced, and then he goes, Mike, lead the team in prayer. And then everybody went down on knees. We were saying the Lord's Prayer in unison. And I tell you what, it is so funny, because they were not praying. They were trying to get composure because they were laughing.
But chuckles were scarce whenever Ditka discussed strategy with his rebellious quarterback.
A lot of times, the play that was sent in was not the one that I called, and that upset him a little bit. He just would blow up, and then I'd blow up, and then it'd just kind of blow over after that.
Mike's mercurial personality was his greatest asset and worst liability, lovable and terrifying. Sometimes in the same conversation, no one was sure which Ditka they'd get, especially the media.
See that? That's your IQ, buddy. 0.
Hold up, turnover, son.
I'd rather talk to him.
Mike,
I know I'm smarter than that.
McMahon called him Sybil, the girl with the multi-personalities. You know, there's things you like about him and things you don't like about him.
Shoot, period. I don't give a run to shoot, catch the ball.
He kept everybody on their toes, and there was a little certain craziness about him that you would think that ship wouldn't sail because of all what we had, but it actually all worked out.
Ditka won over 100 games with 7 playoff appearances, but the victories exacted a steep price.
Topping our news today at 4:30, the coach of the Chicago Bears, Mike Ditka, recovering tonight from a heart attack. At this hour, Coach Ditka is in serious condition at Lake Forest Hospital.
Despite this scare, Ditka simply could not alter his volatile personality and still succeed.
No, not dive, G! Oh, drink!
You know, the Bears will come back. Mike Ditka will survive. I'll land on my feet. There's no problem about that. I don't worry about that. This too shall pass.
We love you, Mike.
You know, it's hard for me to comprehend because I'm still thinking about those days back in Aliquippa on a sandlot when I was getting run over. I was no superstar, but I played hard. I hung in there. I didn't know how to quit. And I guess if you do enough of those things in life, they work out for you.
Distant Replay is brought to you by Plymouth. One clever idea after another.
The new
the lead. Frank, you're right about Darren Smith, and you know what? I think he just lost track of the football. He's pretty much running with his man, but he just lost track of the ball. Didn't know the ball was coming down and kept right on going when the receiver stopped.
Huerta with the extra point. Carlos Huerta supplanting the longtime kicker, Kevin Butler. They just get it off before what would have been a penalty. Conway to Harris.
Looking like Johnny Unitas would throw 3 touchdown passes in this game. Look at the rainbow he makes to Malcolm Floyd. You remember him as Malcolm Seaford. He's now Malcolm Floyd, 24-13 at the half. The Boilers.
Yeah, you see Vinnie Clark here spot shadowed in coverage on Malcolm Floyd. And it's a classic example of losing concentration, watching the quarterback as he rolls to his left, and then Malcolm Floyd getting deep, and a great delivery by Chandler across the football field.
As we mentioned, he had 3 touchdown passes, Tom. Second half, 24-13. Eddie George stacked up. No, he's not. This isn't a guy that looks like Philly. He looks like Brett Irv and Phyllis George on this play. 76 yards. He could go all the... Vinnie Clark tackles him after a 76-yard gain, but Willie Davis catches a touchdown pass, and it's 31-13. Tommy, look at Kevin Hardy.
Well, these are the hits that you live for as a weak side linebacker, the ones where you come untouched, you get in that track stance, the quarterback never sees you coming. We take a look at it here on the replay, and you can see the weight with which he delivers that blow to Chandler.
So the big play, because the Oilers held to 3 instead of 7, it's 34-20. Mark Brunell at a 300-yard day passing over the middle to Pete Mitchell. He's sandwiched. It's a fumble on the 1-yard line. It's the Oilers' ball. But the Oilers did nothing with it and have to punt it away. Chris Hudson, look at him go down the river. He goes 43 yards down to the 3-yard line. Next play, Brunell to Keenan McCardle. Despite the great coverage by Darrell Lewis, McCardle holds on. 2.5 minutes to go. It's 34-27. You know what's coming. We know what's coming. They know what's coming. But Dave Thomas, one of the McKenzie brothers, falls on the onside kick for Jacksonville, and the Jaguars are in business. Second and 6 at the 38. Brunell to Pete Mitchell. It's high, and Marcus Robertson picks it off. As we mentioned, Brunell had a big day for Tom Coughlin. McCardle caught 8 for 100. Brunell 302 yards passing. But Eddie George, 17 carries, 143 yards. Chandler, 3 touchdown passes. And I'm telling you, if you off the top of your cup say, name me 5 members of the Houston Oilers, Bruce Matthews, Al Del Greco, and you're stuck. This is a good team, folks. Oilers 34, Jaguars 27. They're both pretty good teams. Everybody in the Central, said the Bengals, 1-1. When we return, Keyshawn Johnson says, play me. Would the Jets do it? Would it work? Jim Kelly says, oh boy, not the Patriots again. Welcome back to NFL Primetime. Well, to quote the Rolling... Yes, I know we're only in our 2nd year of existence in the NFL, but if they win at New Orleans, 18 games played, 9 wins. This is an expansion team that very soon could have a lot of the NFL under my thumb. We love the Stones. We love the Panthers. We love Ricky Jackson. He was honored at halftime of this game in New Orleans, as named rightly on the Wall of Fame in the Superdome. 100 minutes to go in the first quarter. Winslow Oliver, the rookie, off the punt from Klaus Ginsmeyer. And he could go all the way. 84 yards. Winslow Oliver looks like Winslow, like whatever. It's a touchdown. We're tied at 7. I knew I would screw that up. Everett to Michael Haynes. Down the left side, a 50-yard completion. 3 plays later, Jim Everett and the Saints to Haywood Jeffrey. Touchdown, 27 yards. Saints lead it 14-7. But defense for the Panthers.
Yeah, Panthers always getting after the football. Bottom of your screen, Lamar Latham and Steve Everett. Very lucky there that he wasn't hurt seriously. And then we see Latham make a slight mistake here. Again, he comes from the bottom side of your screen. And his job here is stay as deep as the ball until you see it go past you there. He lets Bates get back behind him for a nice 33-yard gain on the play.
Sets up a field goal. It's 20-19 the Saints. But young second-year quarterback Kerry Collins. First play with 7.5 to go and down. They need drives. Muhsin Muhammad, 18 yards. Second play, Mark Carrier, 14 yards, another first down. Third play, Collins to Carrier, 13 yards, another first down. John Casey, would he have a chance? He has 4 field goals today, but he's sitting alone. Collins to Muhsin Muhammad.